If you are listening to this pre-recorded episode, it is because the Rangers have indeed taken out the Carolina Hurricanes and have now advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And so I feel like I kind of have to explain that intro a little bit better than I just did a second ago there. So basically, what's going on right now is I am this confident in this Ranger team that they are eventually going to figure out a way to eliminate the Hurricanes. And if you're watching this episode, listening to this episode, that means they already have. But just for some context here and to fully explain this whole situation here, I am recording this on Thursday morning. And that means that the Rangers, a little bit later today, obviously tonight, they're going to be playing Game 6 against the Carolina Hurricanes. And I had this really weird feeling. I didn't dare disclose this while the series was still going, but I had a really weird feeling after the Rangers lost Game 4 that they would also lose Game 5 at home, then go on the road and beat the Canes in Game 6, just because that feels like it would be about the most Ranger thing that they could possibly do. With that said, once again, if you're listening to this episode, it means for sure that the Rangers have closed out the series. I thought this would be kind of a fun way to do it. And just to prove to you guys that I'm not BSing anybody here and that actually is the case, I'm going to hold up my cell phone here. You can see anybody watching on YouTube, if we can get a decent look at that. It's kind of hard to see. There it is. Thursday the 16th. That's what time it is, or that's what day it is, rather. And you can see 11:26. And in fact, looking at the clock here, 11:26 a.m. So Game 6 has indeed not happened yet, but I'm this confident. Maybe it's the fact that, Jacob Trouba was speaking very confidently when he won his Mark Messier Leadership Award, but I just feel like one way or another, the Rangers are going to figure out a way to get it done, and they're just not going to let their season end with 4 straight losses. And like I said, if you're watching this video on YouTube, if you're listening to it on any audio streaming platform, then that is exactly what happened. But I thought it might be fun to have a little bit of fun with you guys, say, particularly the more negative Ranger fans, because like I said, I was confident the Rangers would figure out a way to get this done. But some of you did not share in my confidence, and I get it to an extent. It was looking dicey after Game 5. The Canes kind of took control there. Obviously, the disaster third period for the Rangers in Game 5 of that game, but I just kept thinking the Rangers would figure out a way to get it done, and now it, of course, has happened. So we're going to go through some of the comments on YouTube section, the YouTube section for obviously other episodes of Locked On New York Rangers. I'm going to read a couple of comments that are of the positive variety, and then we're going to have some that are a little bit more middle of the road, and then we're going to end with the most fun stuff, and that's the really either panicked Ranger fans or negative Ranger fans or both. Gonna be a lot of fun today. And don't take this too seriously. We're just having some fun here going through the comment section on YouTube. Hey, if you leave the comment, it's fair game. It's available for anyone with an internet connection to see. So we're going to go ahead and go through that right now. So we'll begin with a couple of the positive comments. And these are the ones that happened after the Game 4 loss. So at this point, still 3-1 Rangers. Things are still looking good. We've got a comment here from Sean Lewin who says, come on, guys. They were never going to go 16-0. Don't change anything and go play your game at home. No cause for concern. Now, of course, the Rangers did not get the job done at home, far from it, but I like Sean's positivity here. Look, there's nobody that goes 16-0. I mean, that's never happened in Stanley Cup playoff history. I'd actually be curious. I have to go back and look, what's the best record that a Stanley Cup winning team has ever had? Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel like the Avalanche, actually, not too long ago, what they only lost, maybe 4 games, 5 games at the most. So they did really well. But yeah, nobody's going undefeated. You're going to face some adversity more likely than not. And obviously the Rangers went through some adversity and came through it on the other end. We've also got a comment here from Rangers JP, who says, no one said it was going to be an easy series. Stay fresh, start strong, and be aggressive. Let's go, boys. Seal it up at the Garden. LFGR. Yeah, LFGR indeed. Obviously, once again, the Rangers did not seal the deal at the Garden. They had to make it interesting because that's just what they do. But the bottom line is they got the job done, and we need more Ranger fans that are positive. They're going to back this team and feel good about where they are. And it's not just blind faith. You look at what the Rangers have done all season. They've answered the bell every single time. I realize, the playoffs are a different monster, and they're obviously going up against a great team. And, you had the 3-0 lead. You let that, slip away a little bit, getting it down to 3-2 at one point. But bottom line, still got the job done, and that's what counts. And on to the Eastern Conference Final. We've also got Pete Langworth, who says, agreed, we are 7-1 in these playoffs. That's obviously the record that they were at the time. Everyone relax with the lineup change request. We'll be fine going into tonight's game. And again, didn't get the job done there, but they got the job done ultimately. Now, these are a couple comments, positive comments after Game 5 that we got. This one comes from New York Rangers fan 05, who says, I hate the Rangers' only game plan for the third period was to defend what it sounded like from Emily Kaplan's interview with Dan Muse between the second and third period. 1-0 is not enough to sit back against the Canes. Should have attacked the game instead of being on our heels and hope to close it out. Totally agree. I had the exact same take after Game 5. I thought the Rangers were way too passive. I thought that shorthanded goal by Jacob Trouba, that was a time to really take control of that game, really just kind of grab, the opponent by the throat, just like you did in Game 3. There was a brilliant shorthanded goal in Game 3. Mika to Kreider, just great plays all over the ice by both of those players. Kreider tied the game, and the Rangers were in control the rest of the way. The Canes tied it late, but the Rangers largely dominated play for the rest of that game, and for one reason or another, just didn't do the same thing in Game 5. And, obviously it cost them at the time, but Rangers now moving on, so I'm glad they at least ultimately got the job done. Of course, there are some comparisons to the there were some comparisons to the Yankees back in 04, because if you guys remember, I'm sure we got some baseball fans here. We got some Yankee fans. I myself am also a Yankee fan. There were a couple of comparisons between this Ranger team and that Yankee team, but thankfully, those comparisons can now be put to bed. We're going to get into those and a couple of other middle-of-the-road comments in just a second here, and then we're going to end with a bang, the really negative comments that we can all laugh about now. We can all exhale, sigh of relief, and know that the Rangers are not done, and they did not blow the 3-0 series lead, and they are indeed going to the Eastern Conference Final. So we're going to do all that fun stuff in just a second. First, though, we definitely would like to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. All right, so let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. Going to continue going through your comments, and did want to mention for the everydayers, obviously, what else? We're on to the Eastern Conference Final. Going to be breaking down that series from every single angle from here going forward until hopefully the Rangers eliminate their opponent and punch their ticket to the Stanley Cup Final. But it was hard not to think of this, and obviously a couple of other people pointed this out as well. The comparisons between this Ranger team being up 3-0, letting it go down to 3-2, and the 2004 Yankees team. And I apologize. I should apologize to everybody, including myself, for even bringing this up. But once this series went 3-2, it was hard not to think back to that at least a little bit. Obviously, for anybody that doesn't know the story or just isn't a baseball fan, bottom line, I'm not going to get into all the details. Yankees, Red Sox, Eastern Conference Final. American League Championship Series. There we go. The round before the World Series. Yankees build a 3-0 series lead against the Red Sox. Red Sox win 4 in a row, eliminate the Yankees, go to the World Series and win it, blah, 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 blah. We don't need to get into too many details there. But as I mentioned, it is very difficult to not, think about that a little bit as the Canes can, climb back into the series the way that they did. But this is a comment that we got from Carson, who says, if this becomes a reverse sweep, this will become as agonizing as the 04 Yankees. And I agree. The only slight disagreement I have, I think this would have been worse, because at least with the Yankees, they had won a bunch of World Series. And look, it sucked. It was a complete gut punch. It was rough, and you didn't want to ever let the Red Sox off the hook. You didn't want to ever let them end their 86-year curse, and unfortunately, that's exactly what happened. But at least with the Yankees, you've got that core in place, and those guys had already won 4 World Series together. There was one more World Series to come for at least a handful of players that were on the team in '04 that they ended up winning in what was it, 2010? Was that their most recent, or 2009? I think it was 2009. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was the most recent Yankee World Series. But this would be worse because the Rangers, I mean, when will you have a better chance than this if you're the Rangers? And obviously, this team doesn't win the Stanley Cup very often. The Yankees, your belly's a little bit full from all those World Series wins that they had, winning it 4 times between 96 and 2000. So, yeah, 2004 was absolutely brutal. But at least we'd seen those players win some World Series and gotten to celebrate a bunch of World Series championships. With the Rangers, I mean, not so much. It's the most recent was 30 years ago. The second most recent was 84 years ago. So I think this would actually be worse. And another user here, Fabrizio, seems to agree with me. It would be much worse than that because the Rangers started the playoffs 7-0 and then lose the next 4. That has never happened in any sport. And that's a great point, too. Totally agree. To go a month between losses, which is what the Rangers did. They had their first playoff loss on May 11th. Their most recent loss of any kind before that was on April 11th. So quite literally a month went by, between losses for the Rangers. And to start the way they did and have everything fall apart would have been utterly devastating. And obviously very, very happy that did not happen. So a couple more comments here. These came in after game 4. Rempe back in. Trouba needs to sit, put in Ruedel. I can understand the appeal of a Chad Ruedel to certain Ranger fans, and I liked him too. The few games that we saw him play for the Rangers, thought he did a nice job. They're not sitting Trouba. Trouba would have to play just unspeakably bad hockey before that even becomes an option. There might be some people saying, oh, he's already doing that. No, he's not. Okay, there's times in this playoff run where he's not played well. He's not a very good puck handler at all. He's very slow and too many turnovers. We saw at least, 1 or 2 Trouba turnovers lead directly to goals, but that's your captain. That's somebody that you're going to need. I mean, he does bring the physical presence, and I do think he fits the role as a locker room leader, so he's not going to get sat down. I like Rempe being in the lineup. Now, if everybody's healthy, including, Kreider and Hedel and everybody else, I think Rempe probably is the odd man out at that point. But if Hedel can't go, Rempe's my guy. I want him in the lineup over guys like, Brodzinski, Wheeler. I've even seen Adam Edstrom's name get floated out there a couple times. I don't think he's a serious candidate, but bottom line, Rempe would be my choice over everybody, except for Hedel, but I already mentioned that. Got a comment from Joe here. I don't think Fox has been good in this series. Maybe not terrible defensively, but he certainly hasn't been Fox on offense this series. Yeah, through the first 5 games, I do feel like, he's certainly not a liability. I don't think he's playing poorly, but there have been times throughout the series where I feel like Adam Fox is just kind of there. He's not really jumping out in a positive way, the way that he normally does. I did like against Kuznetsov in game 4. Kuznetsov tried the Michigan and actually kind of got the puck off the ice a little bit. And Adam Fox, saw what was coming. He's just such an alert player. And he basically just tomahawked Kuznetsov's stick and just knocked the puck away from him. Wasn't going to let that happen. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, I think Fox is capable of more. Certainly offensively. Now, again, playoff hockey, a lot of times, certain guys are going to have their offensive numbers go down because that's just the nature of the beast. Everybody's competing so hard defensively. It's hard to really take over games offensively. But yeah, I think that's a fair thing to say that Fox can be a little bit better than he's been. We've got a comment here from Finkel. Kreider should have been made. Okay, Kreider should have been made captain, not Trouba. Gotta disagree. Initially, I kind of had Kreider as my choice. There was a time there where we thought we were going to get a Ranger captain, and then we all had to wait an extra year. And then finally, they end up going with Jacob Trouba. When you listen to the players talk, it sounds like Trouba was basically the unofficial captain, even before he got the C on his jersey. And I just think that he's the guy that just has a little bit more fire and the guy that's going to dole out some tough love when it needs to happen. Now, could they have gone with Kreider? Sure. I think Kreider would have done fine in that role, but this is another thing I've talked about too with that. With Kreider and Mika, we know they're BFFs and everything, right? And I feel like there's a situation there where one of those 2 players wouldn't have wanted to get the captaincy over the other one, as strange as that might sound. So Trouba was kind of your default choice for that reason as well. And, there's other guys. I see some love for Vincent Trocheck. I think Trocheck could be a captain of an NHL hockey team. I really do. Now, there's times where he's a little undisciplined. So, I that might factor into a coach's decision to not make him the captain. And obviously, he's very chatty out there, but somebody that's certainly capable of being an alternate captain. We saw Trouba talk about this when he was accepting the Mark Messier Leadership Award, where there's a lot of guys on this team that he was talking about how people were laughing at them for having so many alternate captains. But he went on to say, somebody like Trocheck could be an alternate. He singled out Igor and Quick as also potentially having that role. Now, I don't think they're allowed to make goalies captains or alternates anymore. I'm not so sure. He named one or two other players as well. But yeah, I mean, you could have always made the case back then that Kreider should have been captain, but I think Trouba probably was the right decision. And don't take my word for it. Just listen to the players, their reaction when Trouba was indeed made the captain. So then after game 5, we had a comment here from Blake Wheeler's burner account. He says, it's bad when the Rangers' only goal was a shorty from Trubes. Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, that's it's great that the Rangers are scoring so many shorthanded goals, but yeah, you're looking for the big guys to produce the offense, and obviously that was nowhere to be found in game 5. Another comment here from Dennis Pett, who says that was an embarrassment. Panarin was MIA, and Trocheck needs to stop chirping and play hockey. Yeah, game 5 was bad. There's no two ways about it. Panarin obviously was not very noticeable in that game. Now, he was about to create some offense in the offensive zone and got hooked and nothing was called. He was hooked for like 3 or 4 straight seconds right in front of the referee. So not sure what was going on there. As far as Trocheck chirping, I mean, it's Trocheck. There's certain people that are going to feel that way. Certain fans are going to, have that opinion where you should just shut up and play hockey. And I get that to an extent, but there's a lot of chirping that goes on out there. And when you sign Vincent Trocheck to a free agent contract, you get everything that he brings to the table, including the extracurriculars, the chirping. He tends to talk out there, and he is a player that we've seen at times can get under people's skin. And I mean, that's part of his game. That's part of who he is. And I think for him to be the most effective player that he can be, like in other aspects of the game, I think you got to let him go out there and do that. Now, you got to know when to reel it in a little bit too, not go overboard, not take a stupid penalty, which if Trocheck does have an Achilles heel, we know it's exactly that. He is prone to take a penalty that he just doesn't need to take from time to time. But the chirping doesn't really bother me because that's such a part of hockey. And like I said, such a part of Vincent Trocheck's game. We've got another comment here. The username is just a bunch of letters and numbers, so I'm not even going to try. But this person said, the Canes have figured out the Rangers. The Rangers are basically the Leafs. Total chalk artists. Well, I'm not sure what a chalk artist is, but you are wrong because the Rangers, they did get the job done against the Canes. They are now in the Eastern Conference Final. We got another comment here from B.A. Wags. The Rangers torched Carolina in a Game 7 on the road in 2022. They will get it done. What is missing from this team is strong veteran leadership. Someone has to push buttons. Yeah, I like the positivity there, but I do disagree with the leadership thing. I think guys like, Barclay Goodrow, that guy, for the critics that he has, he is like a battle-tested veteran and somebody that, leads the way for this Ranger team. And then also, I think certainly somebody like, Jacob Trouba, we just got done talking about him. I think overall they have guys that lead in different ways. People have been talking, Ranger players have been talking about Artemi Panarin and his leadership in these playoffs as well. So I think they're all right on the leadership situation. I think they got enough guys there. We're going to keep everything rolling in just a second. Going to shift our attention to some of the more negative comments, the really over the top, the really pessimistic comments, and the ones that we're going to probably have the most fun reading here now that we know the Rangers have advanced, and we're going to do that in just a second. All right, just want to go ahead and take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Policygenius. Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting today. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Policygenius helps you compare options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help talk you through it. Talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step. Easily compare quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to find your lowest price. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonnhl or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonnhl. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here. These are the really fun ones. These are the ones that people were really upset with the Rangers and declaring the season over and the series over and they're choke artists and they're this and that. We got some of that in the last section, but this is where it really gets fun and we can all laugh about it now that the Rangers have indeed advanced. So we're going to break this up into two sections. This is the YouTube comment section after the Game 4 loss, but before the Game 5 loss. So we've got a comment here from White GD. If they lose tonight, I'm not watching another game. I'm calling your bluff. You absolutely watched every game that happened after Game 4, and you will continue to watch for as long as the Rangers are in the playoffs. So I'm calling your bluff. You absolutely are still watching the Rangers. Another comment here from Joe says, they are done. Now, to be fair here, I assume he's talking about the Rangers. I guess in theory, Joe could be talking about the Canes again. This is after the Game 4 loss by the Rangers. And keep in mind, that game was back and forth. Rangers rallied from 2 goals down, tied the game in the third period, finally gave up their first power play goal of the entire series, lost it late. It is what it is. They lost the game on the road. Joe declaring the Rangers completely done after a situation where they lose Game 4 on the road against an excellent team. Their first loss, like I said earlier, in a month, a full month went by without this team losing a game, and Joe believes the Rangers are done because they lost that game. Turns out that was not the case. Another comment here from, again, it's a username. It's just a bunch of letters and numbers, so, we're not going to go through that. But he says, or she says, who knows, Trouba sucks, plain English, period. Yeah, Trouba's got his critics, I know. And there's times in this playoff run where he hasn't been very good. There's other times where I think he has stepped up. The physicality is something that, I think certainly helps the Rangers. And, obviously they bumped him down to the third pairing. And I think overall he'd done okay in that role. Trouba, he's got a wide range. When he is at his best, he's a good defensive. When he's at his worst, it can be pretty ugly out there. But the Rangers are going to need their captain going forward. That is for sure. We've also got Juan S. here who says, Gustafsson was a huge pickup mistake. I disagree. There's times where Erik Gustafsson has not played his best, has not played quality hockey. I think that's for sure. You could probably say the same thing for just about every number 6 defenseman in the NHL. Most number 6 defensemen are basically what Gustafsson is. There's certain things they do well. There's certain things they don't do so well. And part of the reason they're on the team is because they probably don't command a very high salary. I don't think there's too many number 6 defensemen in the league that are making, like $5 million, $6 million. I mean, you just can't afford it. That's just the nature of the beast when it comes to salary cap. And, coming into the season, the Rangers needed to bring in a defenseman. I know Zach Jones, he's got his fans, and you could make a case that you'd like to see him in this playoff run at some point. Maybe we will. We'll see how that goes. But, yeah, I mean, they needed to bring somebody in, and they didn't have a lot of money to do it, and they give 6 figures, 1-year deal for Erik Gustafsson. I don't think there was any harm in that. And, he has done some good things for the Rangers this season. I think he's fit in well with the team. Is he an excellent Norris candidate? Is he an all-star caliber defenseman? No, he's not. But show me a 6-figure defenseman who's the number 6 defenseman on his team that is any of those things. I think Gustafsson has been okay. Times where he's been shaky. There's times where I hold my breath when he's on the ice. But that's what you're dealing with. It's a number 6 defenseman, and I don't think he's very atypical from, other number 6 defensemen in this league. These are now the comments after Game 5. We're going to shift our attention because this is when a lot of people really began to hit the panic button. We've got Thomas Capellini here. Thomas Capellini. Cup aspirations gone. I can't see it anymore. The mental edge I thought the team had was Fugazi. Don't start using Paul Bissonnette words. That's the last thing we need on here. We don't need any references to Biz. Biz said the Rangers were going to miss the playoffs this year, and I'm pretty sure he said the Devils were going to win. He either said the President's Trophy or the Stanley Cup, and talk about a swing and a miss on both of those things. But, yeah, look, the Rangers, Game 5 was not good enough against the Canes. I don't think there's any other way for me to say it. I think I have said that. I've probably beaten that point into the ground, but I always just felt good that the Rangers would eventually respond. And you got to give some credit to the Canes. Game 5 on the road. Look, their season's on the line. They had to play desperate hockey. They did what they had to do to extend the series. But the Rangers ultimately got the job done, and you're going to face some adversity in the playoffs. Look at the 94 Rangers. Look how much adversity they faced. They went down 3-2 to the Devils. And then even against the Canucks, they go up 3-1. They had to win a 1-goal game in Game 7 to finally win the Stanley Cup. And they got beat by a lot. They got beat pretty bad in Games 5 and 6. I believe they lost both of those games to the Canucks by 3 goals each. So, I mean, you talk about, really being up against it. But they found a way to get the job done in Game 7. And really, That's all that matters. And all that matters here is the Rangers eventually got the job done against the Canes. More rest time would have been nice. Would have been nice for us not to have to sweat things out, get the sweep, get the win in 5 games, but that didn't happen. But it's okay. Rangers are still going, and we'll see what happens in the Eastern Conference Final. We got a comment here from Fruzen, who says the eventual outcome was, he's talking about game 5 here, or she. The eventual outcome was obvious after the first 10 minutes of period 1. From that point on, it was simply waiting for the hammer to fall. There was no cohesive offense, and the defense was getting shredded at will. The third period collapse was the inevitable result of everything that had gone before. Is a reverse sweep on the table after tonight's game? It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I think these are all fair critiques of this team. I mean, I wouldn't say the outcome was obvious after 10 minutes of period 1. Look, the Rangers had the lead going into the third period of game 5. So even though they hadn't played their best, a Ranger win and a closeout win was certainly on the table at that point, especially when you consider how well Igor Shesterkin had been playing in that game. Obviously, it didn't happen. The reverse sweep, I mean, look, anything can happen. I've said this time and time again. Any team that gets into the Stanley Cup playoffs, I believe they at least have a chance of winning the whole thing. That's just the way it goes in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We've seen so many upsets over the years. And in any individual series, I don't care what the series score is. If you're still out there skating and you're still playing hockey, it's game on. You never know what can happen. We've seen the Rangers on different sides of series comebacks a lot over the years. You know, there was a 3-1 series lead they had against the Caps years and years ago, at least 10 years ago. They lost that one. We've seen them 3 times in the last 10 years come back from 3 games to 1 down to win a series. They did it twice to the Penguins, once to the Caps. We saw them go down 2-0 to the Canes a couple of years ago. They came back and won that. We saw them go up 2-0 against the Lightning and Devils. They lost both of those series. So anything can happen. And that's, I think, even more true when you're a fan of this New York Ranger team. NYR for Life says, pathetic effort. They came out flat, got a 1-goal lead, and instead of gaining momentum from it, they ended up going several minutes without a shot. This team is blowing it. Yeah, I mean, it's a little extreme, but you're not wrong really about any of that, except for the last part, obviously. But yeah, the effort wasn't good enough in game 5. You have to understand the fact that you're up against an excellent team that is facing elimination. They're going to throw everything, including the kitchen sink at you, and they're going to play desperate, and the Rangers failed to match that desperation. But fortunately for us, they righted the ship in time. Chris, 2 for YouTube, says, Rangers are toast. The Canes figured something out and went from just being slightly dominant in games 1 through 3 to being totally dominant. Last night looked like an NHL team playing a bad high school team. Canes in 7, and it won't even be close in the next 2 games. I don't really agree with any of that. Maybe game 5 about the NHL team playing a bad high school team. You can kind of do that, obviously exaggerating to make the point, but I don't think the Canes were dominant in games 1 through 3 at all. I mean, they had more shots on goal. They did have more time in the offensive zone. I'll give you that for sure. I mean, the numbers obviously spell that out, but you watch games 1 through 3, a lot of the shots they were taking, not all, but a lot of them, they were just hope plays. You know, the Canes, that's their style. They just throw the puck at the net. And if there's ever like kind of a case study to be made on why that isn't always the best strategy, and there's times where I like doing that. I like when my team just gets aggressive and let's throw it at the net and see what happens. But I think this series is kind of a case study of why that's clearly not always the way to go. And I certainly wouldn't say the Canes were dominant in games 1 through 3, which, by the way, the Rangers won all 3 of those games. We got a comment here from Jack Rick, who says, Rangers are about to pull off the ultimate choke job. I can feel it. They did not. So that's obviously a good thing. You knew we were going to hear from this guy. We got Hockeyest Guy Alive here in all caps here for the first sentence. It's over. When the fans want it more than the players do, must be nice living in Manhattan, making millions, marrying doctors, DJ shows, art shows. They're allowed to have hobbies. They're allowed to enjoy things and get married away from the rink. But fortunately, once again, the series was indeed not over, and the Rangers are moving on. And then we'll do one more here. This is from King... Fabrizio. We'll just say Fabrizio. That's part of the username here. I knew the 3 chokers, Zibanejad, Kreider, and Panarin, would flop. Been saying all year, you can't win a cup with 3 soft choke artists as your top players. Heads got to roll if they blow this series, plain and simple. Well, again, fortunately, those players rose to the occasion. The Rangers in general rose to the occasion. And as far as heads rolling if they blew the series, that's something that may have happened. I mean, Dolan's obviously a very unpredictable, very kind of trigger happy kind of an owner. Can't say for sure if any changes would have been made. A lot of these players have no move clauses, so they control their own destiny in that regard. But Yeah, fortunately, we don't have to worry about that. But yeah, figure we can call it there. Like I said, I just thought it would be a lot of fun to look at some of the more extreme, I guess we could say it, comments. We went through some comments. Not everybody was negative. A lot of people were positive, and let's keep it together and see the Rangers get a series win. And again, they have now, of course, done that, and it's obviously awesome to see. And Eastern Conference Final, here we come. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, at @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's at @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time in the Eastern Conference Final.